ago for an organization, a governmental organization, who invited me to speak to the organization about what they were experiencing in the organization, something they labeled as the crab in the barrel syndrome. And many of us would have heard about that syndrome. And those of you who come from the country parts understand very well that those who go out to catch crab, they don't have to cover the barrel. Why? Because as you put the crabs in the barrel, if one should try to climb out, the rest will pull them back. And so, this organization asked me to come and address that culture that was festering in the organization. And I thought, what better way to do it than to write a poem that really put across to people what they're doing when they are practicing the crab in the barrel syndrome. So I called the poem Methodology of Ending Up in the Boiling Pot. Like a crab in a barrel, I will hold the progressive ones back. This is how I'll act because confidence I really lack. I lack the confidence that those climbing out will remember to give a shout. And I lack the confidence in myself that I too have the ability to also climb out. My life is in misery and misery loves company, so I'll pull back my comrades to the place that it's best to be. At the bottom of the barrel, where I know I can guarantee, where we can all stick together and none of us can be free.
Welcome, David Neita. Thank you for joining Black Economics today.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Okay, now David Neita calls himself the poetry lawyer. So he's a lawyer and he writes amazing poetry and he's a public speaker. So if you need him to really shake up the room, he's the man for you. David, tell us about yourself. Tell us about when you were growing up. What kind of things did you think you wanted to do?
When I was growing up, I actually wanted to be an agricultural scientist because I loved the subject in school. And I spent a lot of time studying that subject and learning about animal husbandry and plant husbandry and really thought about it in relation to the development of a nation and how it was important to grow your own foods and everything and have a sustainable ecosystem and look after it and look after the earth. So I was thinking about that for a long time ago when I was growing up as a child. And
was that in the UK or back in Jamaica?
In Jamaica, yeah. And I didn't go down that path. I went down another route, which is to go and do A-levels and went to the university, and I started out doing natural sciences, and I changed to business management and administration. And whilst doing business management and administration, I had to do a law course, and I really enjoyed it.
Oh.
And I thought about being a lawyer, because during my school career, I was always a part of activities which represented students and marginalized sections of society, and I thought law might be a fitting profession, and so I went into law, studied law, and then I got called to the bar, and I've done law in a kind of a non-traditional way, that I've done a lot of community work with my law and a lot of pro bono work. I've also worked with organizations, but what I enjoy most is to work with organizations that are already doing great things and add some of my influence and value so that we can create some synergy and make it work, you know. So I've been doing that now for a few decades and really enjoy it. But law is not my main focus anymore because I'm doing a lot of work in the creative sector. So the poetry and now I'm writing plays. And now I'm at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival presenting this play UPLIFT, which is about the Windrush generation, which links back to law because it's basically, this play is raising the profile and the awareness around the Windrush scandal and about what people who are affected by the scandal can do and how they can be helped and how they can get legal support. And so I have connections with a lot of legal teams all over the place who can help people with it. So, yeah.
Okay, so you are a barrister?
Called to the Bar of England and Wales, yeah.
Yes, okay. So you must have worked on a number of very interesting cases over the years.
I've been a part of some interesting cases. I was part of I represented a nurse some time ago, a male nurse who sued who had a case involving the Nurses and Midwifery Council for blowing the whistle on some bad practices that were happening in that organization. I still represent nurses who have issues with that particular organization, the Nursing and Midwifery Council. I've also been a part of a case involving thousands of miners in South Africa who suffered injury and damage from asbestos mining company. I'm involved now with the Windrush campaigns and the Windrush cases. And just people in the community. I've worked to represent a lot of young people who've been excluded from schools and working in that in both a legal way but also in a preventative way. So I'll try to create a sort of a partnerships with head teachers to bring in programs in schools like poetry program, creative programs that works with young people who are maybe at risk of exclusion to try and get them to think about how they might, achieve all that they can, discover their talents that's within them, and so just working on reducing school exclusion, but also getting teachers to see that that's not the answer, and working with teachers and training teachers around bringing out the best out of students in a particular way, because I don't know if teacher training has been good enough on that. We still have high rates of exclusion in school, and particularly within the black community. So we see that there's a sort of systematic racism that's taking place in the schools. It's about getting people to look with fresh eyes and with positive expectations of black students.
Okay.
So I work within that field.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a human rights lawyer who's a very erudite poet, and he's going to do a wonderful tribute to James Baldwin. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the irrepressible David Neita.
Big respect, Jack. And I rate your planning skills because the way you planned your 100th plaque to coincide in a year when James Baldwin would have been 100 years old. I love your technique. I love it. God bless. All right. So this poem is called "The Three Postures or Positions of James Baldwin in Relation to Identity." The first is awareness and clarity. He was fully conscious of his race, a black man. He was clear about his sexuality, a gay man. He was knowledgeable and articulate about the implication of the repugnant and ruinous forces of associated discrimination. Yet, he was not pessimistic, but rather optimistic. When his identity was presented as a drawback, he retorted that he had hit the jackpot. And he would find a way to use his identity for perpetual positivity. So I think what we can draw from that as a community is the reprehensible nature of any kind of discrimination and how our words and behavior can impact people who are different, diverse, and so on. So James wants us to do that, to have a better, future going forward. Secondly, so that's a posture of being aware of your identity, clear about your identity. But beyond that, James' regard for his identity was with value and respect. Not just knowing it, but valuing it.
So tell me, David, when did you first start doing poetry? You call yourself a poetry lawyer.
Yeah, well, I was writing poetry for a very long time, really, since I was a child,
Really?
Yeah. There was poetry all around me growing up. I grew up in a society which is very poetic. We had people like Louise Bennett, who used to share her poems on a weekend program, Miss Lou. And there's always a rhythm. But beyond the poets of my country, and the region generally, and just poets generally across the globe, there was this rhythm in Jamaica that I believe is quite poetic. From the waking up in the morning to I grew up in the country, so you have the cockerels waking up in the morning and the crickets putting it to bed at night, all this sound.
Yeah.
And it's kind of rhythmic. And there's a whole orchestra in nature in Jamaica. And so therefore it's the backdrop to some good lyrics, And then on top of that you have very poetic expression of our nation, be it in spoken word or people doing songs or music in a particular way. And so it's just a part of the culture. Poetry is a part of the culture, and it's in the air. And I thought I would just connect with it and write some. And I've always been writing to entertain people around me, my peers and so on, and to really make a point about various things. And it continued in my adulthood, and then it became almost like a commercial thing for me, Like I started making money from poetry.
Wow.
Publishing a book. And then people say, we like your book, but we like how you sound. So I thought, well, let me make some CDs. I made some CDs, and now people are back on books, and then I'm doing events, and I'm being hired, and I've used my poetry in mental health. So I've used poetry within a number of mental health settings, including some of the big mental health hospitals in this country. And to help people to find their voice, to write, to recite, and to share what's on their mind. So it's been a very useful tool, and now using poetry to write plays, so it's a very I think it's a very useful tool. It's available to everybody. I always encourage people to write poetry to help to find your own voice and to help to understand people as well, sometimes you can explain something to somebody about something you feel passionate about, and it may not translate at all. Sometimes if you put it in a poem, it can be more succinct and more powerful. So sometimes I would just encourage young people and adults and everybody really to jot down your ideas and try and put it in a creative form, so that you can make your point in that kind of way. And
so where can people buy your books and CDs?
The first set of books I've made sold out, and I haven't reprinted. But I have a new print that's coming out, and I'm going to be doing, a book launch, and people can connect me through this program here. If you're interested in material, I still have like CDs that for sale, Now people have gone to streaming online, but you still find the odd person who have a CD player that they use. Like myself, I play CDs still, and LPs, and in fact cassette tapes. So
Going back a bit.
So so if there was anybody interested, I'm easy to find really, and I can make that available. But I think I'm now going to be forced to go into the streaming business, because that's really where everything is moving,
Yes.
where you're online and people can download your things, so I'll be developing an online presence so that people can access my work. I do have a TED Talk that's available online, so if you put my name in the website and TED Talk, you'll see my TED Talk emerge, and the TED Talk is all poetry.
Oh,
that's
wow.
all I'm doing in the TED Talk.
Fantastic.
Is poetry. Yeah. So that's also a bit of a way to share my work. People can access it. They don't have to pay anything for that. But
I think all of those books that are not printed still, I think those can easily be resurrected, can't they?
Absolutely, yes.
And they can be sold as e-books, print books, or audio books.
Absolutely. So I think, and in fact, talking about audio books, I'm working on some projects now involving books in terms of some subject areas that I've been interested in for a long period of time. Three of which are, one is about Paul Laurence Dunbar, who is another poet I'm interested in, how he communicated his work and the value of his poetry for people today. I think people need to look at that poetry. The other book is about beauty and how we need to embrace our beauty, and it's been taken away essentially, and I mean our physical external beauty, just God-given beauty that's just been stolen in a way, right, by the forces of cosmetics and kind of like a non-African centric view of the world, that makes most people feel the global majority not get placed within that context of beauty. So this thesis is about embracing our beauty, and then the other book is about Joseph and the Pharaoh, and looking at Joseph and the Pharaoh and that relationship and the diversity involved in that relationship and the power of diversity and inclusion. So I'm working on those projects as books, and they will be coming on stream very soon.
Okay.
And people can access that. But I think we all have something to say. We all, as you know the phrase, we all have a book in us. And I think we need to tap into that. And we're in a world that now is so much more connected, and everybody can have an audience of 10 now. So you can produce something and 10 people will support it and buy it. And that's a great feeling when you have a product and 10 people purchase it. It just feels good, you know what I mean? But that 10 can be multiplied tenfold and tenfold and tenfold and so on as you develop. And if what you're saying is really powerful, it will go far and wide.
You have a play that you're putting on in Edinburgh. Tell us about that.
Absolutely. So we're right here in Edinburgh, in the heart of Edinburgh, and I'm putting on my play UPLIFT, of which I have a flyer right here, which I can show you. This is my play UPLIFT, and it's a play written to celebrate the contributions of the Windrush generation. It also points to the unfortunate and disastrous and cruel set of circumstances surrounding the Windrush scandal, and how the challenges that presented to the community, the damage it created, and how we're trying to get through that now, how we're trying to build our community and get through that onslaught of hostility that's been directed at the community from the government. There's been an apology from the government. There's a compensation scheme that's been set up, but we need more than that, I believe. We need people to access the compensation scheme. A lot of people have not accessed the scheme because of a number of reasons which you can go into, but the whole idea of the play is to raise awareness so people know that this is their nation, this is their home, and it's to combat that awful, horrid phrase that the government weaponized when they sent those advance into the community that said go home. And in terms of the play and the movement I'm trying to advance, it's about not going home but staying put to make a compensation claim and recognizing that this is your home. It's one of the very important things I'm trying to do within the, let's just say, the black community, political black community, people of the global majority here, is to recognize that this is our home. You know, it's not a resting place, it's our home. We can have many homes, you know. Many of us consider Africa to be home, and that's absolutely fine. It's a motherland, it's a homeland. Many of us consider the Caribbean or South Indian, if there are people from that there. But amongst it all, Britain is our home, and I think that's a psychological thing, that once you realize that this is our home, you behave in relation to your home in a different way, because it's yours to protect, to keep, to participate in, to play a role in, to protect your right to be here, you know, to combat the negative forces like racism and discrimination that's rife in some of our institutions, you know, and within governmental organizations and policies, organizational policies as well, you know. When it's home, you want to make home work, you want to make it hospitable, and where it's inhospitable, to challenge it.
Every day God send is a brand new start. So make we take the opportunity to look into the heart. Every day God send begin a new year, a new decade, a new century, a new 1,000 years. So don't you wait another day to put into action the good things you put off for a future program. You're taking care of yourself, but what about your neighbor? The sick and the hungry and the outsider. Them not get a look in, the widow and the orphan. Why don't you open up your heart and stretch out your hand